Hello, beautiful friends. Welcome back to 365 Days of Love and Miracles with A Course in Miracles. My name is Arlene Geres, and I am so glad that you are here. Please remember to listen right until the very end, because we have a special treat for you. And if you enjoyed today's video, please click like and subscribe down below, because this helps others to find us on YouTube. Today's lesson is lesson 100. I will accept my part in God's plan for salvation. Salvation, as explained in A Course in Miracles, is about all of us accepting that we are part of God and all of creation. This is about unity as opposed to separation, where we think that we are individual little pockets of personality running around disconnected, lonely, miserable, and unhappy, and accept our part in God's plan for salvation. We are part of the whole, and each one of us has responsibility for playing our part. Let's read today's lesson. Just as God's Son completes his Father, so your part in it completes your Father's plan. Salvation must reverse the mad belief in separate thoughts and separate bodies, which lead separate lives and go their separate ways. One function shared by separate minds unites them in one purpose, for each one of them is essential to them all. Let's talk about it. One function shared by all. We all have a single purpose, a single part to play in God's plan for salvation. Salvation must reverse the mad belief in separate thoughts and separate bodies. This is rather a humbling thought, to think of all those years where I thought that I was just this separate body named Arlene. That was my identity. That was who I saw myself as. That was a mad idea. When I see myself as being part of God, then even the name Arlene is meaningless, because I'm not a body. I am spirit, whole, complete, and perfect. And so are you. Let's keep reading. God's will for you is perfect happiness. Why should you choose to go against his will? The part that he has saved for you to take in working out his plan is given you that you might be restored to what he wills. This part is as essential to his plan as to your happiness. Your joy must be complete to let his plan be understood by those to whom he sends you. They will see their fun in your shining face and hear God calling to them in your happy laugh. Let's talk about it. We are God's ambassadors of love on this earth, every one of us, angels in disguise, meant to bring joy and laughter everywhere we go. God's will for you and for me is perfect happiness. Hey, how about that? Doesn't that just make you want to shout from the rooftops? It sure does me. That's why I'm doing this. My joy, your joy, must be complete to let his plan be understood by whoever he sends us to. Being complete means 100% abiding in God, trusting wholeheartedly that God will never let us down. We gladly accept our part in God's plan for salvation. Let's keep reading. You are indeed essential to God's plan. Without your joy, his joy is incomplete. Without your smile, the world cannot be saved. While you are sad, the light that God himself appointed as the means to save the world is dim and lusterless, and no one laughs, because all laughter can but echo yours. Remember, we are part of the whole. When we laugh, we affect the whole in a powerful way. And so we have this responsibility, if you like, this precious gift that we are meant to share, because that laughter just echoes everywhere. Have you ever been at a comedy show where maybe you didn't think the comedian was that funny, but everybody else was laughing and you couldn't help but laugh? Laughter is definitely contagious, and laughter is healing. We want to be practicing happiness, joy, and we will just allow laughter to freely burst out of us because we know that is how we complete God's plan. Could you imagine if the whole world grasped hold of this idea? What perfect joy and happiness we would all be experiencing every minute of every day. Isn't that a beautiful thought? Let's keep reading. You are indeed essential to God's plan. Just as your light increases every light that shines in heaven, so your joy on earth calls all minds to let their sorrows go and take their place beside you in God's plan. God's messengers are joyous, and their joy heals sorrow and despair. They are the proof that God wills perfect happiness for all who will accept their Father's gifts as theirs. Let's talk about it. This is not talking about fake happiness or pretending that we're full of the joy of God or laughing when we feel like crying. This really means that we do what we need to do. Sometimes we lose people that we love. A friend of mine just lost her husband, and the service is going to be tomorrow. I am not going to go to that service laughing and just letting God's joy burst out of me. But I am going to hold that joy in my heart as a promise for my friend who has experienced such sorrow right now. And I will continue to hold that light out to her because she will come through this. She will always miss her husband. That doesn't go away just because we practice these principles. But it does become lighter. It does become easier. And in time, we do experience joy instead of that sorrow. Many of you know that I lost a son to death and another son through circumstances. And I have experienced deep sorrow, deep loss. I've cried many a tear about both of those situations. But today, I truly have joy because I know that both of my children are with me in spirit, and the love that I have for them has not dimmed one particle. If anything, because I'm practicing A Course in Miracles, that love and the joy in my children has only grown stronger. Let's keep reading. We will not let ourselves be sad today, for if we do, we fail to take the part that is essential to God's plan as well as to our vision. Sadness is the sign that you would play another part instead of what has been assigned to you by God. Thus, do you fail to show the world how great the happiness He wills for you, and so you do not recognize that it is yours. Let's talk about it. This lesson is really hammering home the idea that we actually have a sacred responsibility to find our happiness. It is there, even when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Deep inside of our spirit, we know that joy lives there. And in time, even in the darkest of times, that joy can shine forth brilliantly if we are willing to uncover all of the mud that keeps us stuck, keeps us trapped in the sadness of this world. Let's keep reading. Today, we will attempt to understand joy as our function here. If you are sad, your part is unfulfilled, and all the world is thus deprived of joy along with you. God asks you to be happy, so the world can see how much He loves His child and wills no sorrow arises to abate her joy. No fear besets her to disturb her peace. You are God's messenger today. You bring His happiness to all you look upon, His peace to everyone who looks on you and sees His message in your happy face. Let's talk about it. How do you spread joy today? This is really the question for each one of us to consider. Before we go out the door in the morning, we do our morning practice. We ask God to fill our hearts with His love, peace, and joy. It really does work. I promise you. Let's keep reading. We will prepare ourselves for this today in our 5-minute practice periods by feeling happiness arise in us according to our Father's will and ours. Begin the exercises with the thought today's idea contains. Then realize your part is to be happy. Only this is asked of you or anyone who wants to take his place among God's messengers. Think what this means. You have indeed been wrong in your belief that sacrifice is asked. You but receive according to God's plan and never lose or sacrifice or die. Let's talk about it. This is not a sacrifice. If we think about the worldly way of doing things, any time that I give something away, time, money, talents, I'm sacrificing. I'm giving to get. However, when I give to God, when I make the choice to ask for God's joy, peace, and love in my morning prayers, I only gain. I don't sacrifice anything. I have struggled a little bit with the idea that when I take time to do my daily readings and do my prayers and meditations, that I am sacrificing time. My early life was so much about never having enough time. I always felt the time pressure. So it's been a huge growth for me to recognize that the more time that I invest in spending time with God, I actually have more time. I'm not sure how that works. The Course does say that God bends time. I can't really understand it in my human mind, but I've experienced it. When I do these practices, I urge you to make these daily lessons part of your daily practice, and you will experience that you have more than enough time for everything else. Let's keep reading. Now, let us try to find that joy that proves to us and all the world God's will for us. It is your function that you find it here, and that you find it now. For this you came. Let this one be the day that you succeed. Look deep within you, undismayed by all the little thoughts and foolish goals you pass as you ascend to meet the Christ in you. Let's talk about it. We are one in God. Christ is love. As we go up practicing these spiritual principles, we will rise up to meet the love that is deep within us, rising up as comparison to being weighted down by all of the world's problems. Let's keep reading. He will be there, and you can reach him now. What could you rather look upon in place of him who waits that you may look on him? What little thought has power to hold you back? What foolish goal can keep you from success when he who calls to you is God himself? Let's talk about it. What could hold you back? Now, this is a very important question to consider here. I would invite you to take your journal and to write down all the things that are holding you back, keeping you stuck in the world's way of living, and preventing you from embracing and accepting the love that is the truth of who you are. What are you afraid of? What do you think is going to happen if you come on over to the winning team? I promise you, it is only good and exciting and wonderful. But first, it is important that we take a look at all of our blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is the truth of who we are. What are our blocks? Perhaps it was childhood experience. Some of us had some very damaging experiences in the church. Some of us are afraid that if we accept the principles of A Course in Miracles, that we are somehow turning our back on what the Bible says. Please remember that all of these books, including A Course in Miracles, were scribed by people who couldn't help but get some of the ideas of the time down in those books. There's so much good in every holy book. Any holy book is really all about our higher power's love for us. Anything different from that is simply humanity's confusion, where the ideas of the culture have been superimposed over the message in those holy books, and thus we have all kinds of spiritual problems. A Course in Miracles is very different because it only speaks about love. There are no rules. There is no grand organization that we're asked to send money to. It is only about us accepting that we are love and we are loved. And then we are asked to go and share that with everyone else. Pretty simple, don't you think? Let's finish today's reading. He will be there, and you can reach him now. What could you rather look upon in place of him who waits that you may look on him? What little thought has power to hold you back? What foolish goal can keep you from success when he who calls to you is God himself? He will be there. You are essential to his plan. You are his messenger today, and you must find what he would have you give. Do not forget the idea for today between your hourly practice periods. It is your capital S self who calls to you today, and it is him you answer every time you tell yourself you are essential to God's plan for the salvation of the world. Let's talk about it. Our practice periods today, again, are our morning and our evening practice periods, our hourly practice periods. Plus, here, we are asked to recall the idea for today in between our hourly practice periods. So essentially, this lesson is telling us that it would be helpful if we think about this all day long. I am essential to God's plan for the salvation of the world. You are essential to God's plan for the salvation of the world. Will you join me? Together we can do mighty things. Thanks so much for listening right until the end, my friends. If you enjoyed today's video, please share the love, tell others about these videos, encourage them to start at lesson 1 and only do 1 lesson a day. Are you ready for our special treat? This was a truly miraculous day with my husband Bryce and my good friend Susan.
Yeah, but this is nothing. We need to go after it.
Our guide is telling us this is nothing. We need to keep walking.
Okay, well,
But
I
it's-
can appreciate this at this moment because it's definitely more than I've ever seen.
My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Let us fulfill our part in God's plan today, my friends. I love you.